You said you got to treat it like it's a full-time, even if it's part-time.
Right.
What do you mean?
Let's say, hey, I'm available on weekends. I get done with my full-time job at 5 o'clock. Then I want to try this thing that these guys talk about. And I want to do telesales. You cannot approach this like a hobby. And I'm telling you as somebody who did this part-time, but I took this deadly serious. Like,
You were working harder than people that were doing it full-time.
I was.
I think that's what people need to hear. If you start full-time, you're almost doing double time. If you're doing it part-time, you're doing it full-time, right? You're just in condensed amount of availability.
Yeah. Welcome back to another episode of the Life Insurance Academy podcast. Zach and I are rolling here with our bobbleheads.
Let's go!
We got bobbleheads.
We are.
Adam. Yep. And soon Zach's hair will match Roger and I's.
If you keep that gray Sharpie away from it.
That's right.
You all stress me out, man.
That's what we do. Today's episode, Zach and I are having a conversation. We felt like it would bring value to you guys. Our conversation is based off of some trainings that we've been doing with agents and some of the tendencies that we've been seeing. And we want you guys, our number one issue here in our conversations on our podcast is for you to be profitable. That's it. That's what matters. You are doing this to make money. You're investigating this to see if it's an opportunity, a real opportunity. It is. The reason I know it is because we have tons of people on this podcast who have done it successfully, are doing it successfully. We've had great success doing it ourselves. So there you have it. It can be done.
Yes. This is a cool thing, Chris, because this is real conversations. These are conversations we have over lunch. These are conversations we have before the podcast. And then all of a sudden we're like, well, why don't we just talk about it on the podcast?
Yeah.
Because we are always in pursuit of finding out where the disconnect lies between an agent thinking they're following the teaching and implementing everything in the sales system, but not receiving the results. Where's the disconnect? What is the where does that awareness come in to realizing there is a difference? And the hardest part about that, Chris, is when you're brand new and you haven't seen that other side of what it feels like, what it sounds like, what it looks like, the connection, you have nothing to compare it to yet. And so you may feel as if you're doing it right or you're having that result. But until you truly have been on that side or felt that, experienced that, then you know there's something missing there.
Right. If that's true, and you are getting into this, and you're investing in leads, and you're doing the work, and you're moving forward, if everything Zach said is true, then the one thing we can know is that there's a learning curve to this. And regardless if you're doing it face-to-face or virtual sales, there's a learning curve.
I'll tell you something interesting, Chris. Speaking to the learning curve, we're actually doing a live coaching series, finishing up one right now on our Thursdays at 10:30, all Life Insurance Academy live coaching, 10:30 Eastern time. And in that, we took a poll of everybody that was on there. And it was, how long does it take for an agent to really become successful, right? And successful was, stable, consistent, a lot of that fear, failure, that pressure, the anxiety, all of that to kind of be removed. And the consensus was 12 to 18 months. 12 to 18 months. And to clarify, it's not 12 to 18 months for them to be profitable or to make more money than they ever made in their life. It's 12 to 18 months to understand the full scope of that vertical or that niche and really to master it and take it to another level to where you're really comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? But here's the interesting thing. How long does it take typically for an agent that doesn't make it to fail out? And a lot of it was 30 to 60 days.
Right.
So there's a gap between 30 to 60 days, right?
Right.
To 12 to 18 months, right? They also said that if you could hang on and last to that 12 to 18 months, almost everybody will be profitable and successful. How do we bridge that gap? And this topic today, to me, it aligns with that so perfectly because it's about being able to make those little incremental changes.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm glad they were able to identify that, because that is very true. You start to find the rhythm of the work, the rhythm of the communication and connection that needs to happen with your clients, and really running your business. And there's kind of a blend here. So let me tell you this. We want to give you some practical, tactical pieces to this today. Grab your crayons and your pencils. You're going to want to take notes. Really what we're talking about here is establishing and maintaining trust through competence. Now, when we talk about establishing trust, it's done through two ways. One is authority and the other is empathy. And we go through that in detail in our trainings and our coaching sessions. You can get our courses. You can learn all about establishing trust the correct way. You can join our training. We have that available at lifeinsuranceacademy.org. We're going to learn you good. I wrote that song, by the way. But
when are you going to bring out the guitar for that? You're an artist now.
No, I am now. So, lifeinsuranceacademy.org. You can get our coaching and our courses. But we want to give you an idea of this component of trust, because you can establish it, but if it's not maintained all the way through, you can undo everything that you did. So the very first thing in the competence, and Zach talked about this learning curve, is if you are doing this business and you're stepping into it, you have to treat it like it's a full-time job, regardless if it's part-time, because it's serious work. You have to approach this seriously. We joke and we have fun with this. Okay, time out.
You said you got to treat it like it's a full-time, even if it's part-time.
Right.
What do you mean?
That,
like, in what aspects? What aspects are we talking about? We need some clarity.
So if you're, let's say, hey, I'm available on weekends, and I'm available, I get done with my full-time job at 5 o'clock, then I want to try this thing that these guys talk about, and I want to do telesales, right? So then you better be ready to call and dial.
So to be clear, you're not saying just dabble in a few calls in the evenings.
No.
And like work the weekend and,
no. You cannot approach this like a hobby. And that's the problem. I see a lot of agents approaching it like it's something I'm going to try. It sounds exciting. It sounds new. Dipping your toe in. And what I'd encourage you, and I'm telling you as somebody who did this part-time, but I took this deadly serious. Like,
you were working harder than people that were doing it full time.
I was. And
I think that's what people need to hear, because so many people try to, like, well, I don't know if I'll be good at it or not, so I'm going to give it 10%. And if I get like a massive return on that 10%, then I'm going to dive in. But
correct.
Like, no matter if you start full time, is what I'm hearing from you. If you start full time, you're almost doing double time.
Yeah.
You're doing overtime. You're doing weekends, nights. You're doing everything. If you're doing it part time, you're doing it full time, right? You're just in condensed amount of availability.
Yeah. I like how you said that. If you're full time, it should be treated as double time. If you're doing it part time, it should be treated as full time. Yeah. And that you have to do what it takes to get through the learning curve and approach this seriously. So when I say taking it seriously, for me, the work before the work was mastering my presentation. It was learning the applications that I was going to be using on a regular basis by printing them out and almost memorizing them, almost knowing the common prescription drugs that were used that would like blood pressure, for diabetes, for cholesterol, so I wasn't hung up on some of these
knowing how to pronounce them.
Yes, knowing how to pronounce them. And some of that work for me, I've joked about this, that my wife and I, we created some 3x5 cards with names of clients, health scenarios, whether we're tobacco users or not, in different ages. And she would play the role of that person. and I would have to work on a sales presentation and underwriting with her on that. So she was very supportive in helping me take ownership of this. So, and the other serious part for me was when I was out in the field, I started out face to face, that I wasn't eating lunch until I got my sale. And that was fine. That didn't last. That didn't last long because I was getting sales. No jokes. But there were days I went home and my first meal was dinner.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get a sale. But I wanted to feel. I said to myself, I wouldn't take the risk of what my family would feel. I needed to feel it first.
Right.
That was my attitude and approach to it. But I took it seriously. So if you're approaching it like, yeah, I probably should look at the script, but man, the cats are playing today. I can do that later. It's if you see and tell yourself the truth, just tell yourself the truth. Is it keep getting pushed later, and next thing you know, I'm calling my leads and I'm going to do this. That's you're setting yourself up for some challenges.
Are you ready to launch your insurance career? Excel Solutions is your go-to leader in life, accident, and health insurance pre-license training. Their cutting-edge e-learning platform is packed with rich content. Think interactive assessments, engaging videos, and customized learning paths, all tailored to your learning style. Being students ourselves, we've trusted Excel now for years to deliver top-notch training, offering high pass rates. Their streamlined prep review courses and the exam simulator are really your secret weapons to nailing the state exam the very first time. Now, you thought it couldn't get any better. Well, it just did. Life Insurance Academy listeners, you receive an epic 50% discount, reducing the regular course fee from $199 to only $99. So, all you have to do is use partner code LIA at liapodcast.org/Excel. Now, Excel spells XCEL. So don't think about it any longer. Dive headfirst into your insurance career with Excel Solutions' premier pre-license training with that exclusive 50% discount just for you. Get the code, get licensed, and excel in your insurance career.
So we talk about the trust aspect of this, right?
Yeah.
The one thing that I think is you have to highlight there, the things that you were practicing in that role play was being a human. It was tonality. It was real scenarios. But more importantly, I think one thing you said there that a lot of people miss is they don't practice the underwriting. They don't practice reading the health questions, right? Mm-hmm. They don't practice understanding, and I'm not talking about being an expert, but you could Google it, like a medication, and just
look
understand.
up the top 5 meds for each of those.
Exactly. Understand what it's being used for. So it sounds like when you're talking to your clients, it comes off to them and you get a strong sense of credibility, right, through the authority side of trust.
Correct.
All because you know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. You know how to say the medication, because a lot of times they don't know how to pronounce them. So if we can help them pronounce it and say, oh, is that for your high blood pressure? Oh, I'm assuming, do you have diabetic neuropathy? Is that what you take that for? Or, or do you have Parkinson's disease?
Let's do one real quick, okay? Yeah. So you've called me, right? And I'm like,
Mr. Chris.
Yeah, yes. So I'm talking to you, and I'll say, my doctor said something about, Zach, you asked about that diabetes, and he said I might be pre-diabetic. So he gave me a pill to take. I don't remember what it is.
Perfect. Did they give you, is it metformin, or did they give you glipizide?
It was that metformin.
Okay.
It was. Are you a doctor? So how did you know that?
No, sir. I've just been doing this a long time, and we have to make sure that we know this side of it, because actually being able to see if you can qualify is a huge part of our business.
Okay. So we'll time out on that. All right. How many times did that exact conversation happen to you when you're on the phone or you're talking to a client face to face, where they say something to that effect of, wow, are you a nurse? Are you a doctor or something like that?
Wow, you really know your stuff. To be honest, at least 50% of the time.
Right.
But even on the other ones, they're always in 100% of my sits. They understand that I know their health. I know medications. I know the health questions. I can explain situations. Like, okay, perfect. Now you said you retain water, right? This is a water pill. Do you retain it around your heart? Do you retain it around your feet or your legs? Do you get tingling?
Yes.
Like being able to help them diagnose what they have going on and help them pronounce their medications. It almost feels as if I'm on their team, that I'm part of their doctor group,
Yes, and they trust their doctors in most cases.
Yeah.
And this is the connection I want us to see in this conversation. Trust isn't just sharing the carriers that you're with. It's not just showing the badge. But when you show competence, they're expecting to work with people who know what they're talking about. You don't have to know it all. Matter of fact, these applications, like print out your top two carriers, read through those questions on your top 2 carriers. At the most, you probably have 20 questions.
100%. And I'll tell you another hack here is I would always let my clients know that every carrier and company is different. And the reason they're different, there's not one that's best for everybody. Right? Everybody deals with a little bit of health challenges, like you and your wife could be on different companies, but we want to make sure what's best for you, because Mr. Chris, whatever we have that takes care of you the best, ultimately it leaves the best benefit for your wife, Lisa, and vice versa. So being able to explain that on the front end, or even plant that seed, and then going into, again, medications. Like, so we know which carriers are better for people that are diabetics, or people that have had heart issues, or people that have dealt with cancer in one form or another. That will give me credibility, and it also makes them depend on me when it comes to what company and carrier selection.
Correct.
It gives me authority, trust, and a sense of, and that gives me ultimate control to put them in the best position.
So you addressed a couple of things there. You addressed carrier, and you addressed medications and diagnoses. So the interesting thing about this is the work before the work. Actually, the work before the work is mindset stuff.
You got to slow down on that, Chris.
Yeah, but we'll talk about this middle section here. Is those 2 pieces specifically, what it means is go to ChatGPT and ask what are the top 5 blood pressures. And it will give you the information. Yeah, Google it. And it's using ChatGPT, by the way. I don't know if you see that on the top. It's giving AI answers. Cool. Check it out. Oh, it's Gemini. Thank you. I don't want to. They are sponsoring the podcast.
He knows not what he does.
That's right. So get that list and start working on it. Print your applications. I know that sounds old school. Print them out and leave them laying around your apartment, your house, wherever, where you can just pick it up and look at it and get to know it. I got one more thing here, Zach, that I want them to pay attention to. So you can start to memorize it. This is what I do know. You aren't going to call your clients at 10 o'clock at night. You aren't going to call them at 7 o'clock in the morning. But what you can do is you can pull out those lists and get familiar with it and take ownership. This is your business. You're doing serious work. This is you taking ownership of your business. So there's a third piece to this.
Feed me.
It's the script or the presentation, depending on if you're all this is true, face-to-face or telesales.
And listening to this, Chris, I can't help but think of, sometimes we make, and I'm not saying me and you, I'm just saying we in general, us as individual agents, make things more difficult than it should be.
Yeah.
And that comes from the pressure we put on ourselves. It comes from, fear of failure, whatever you want to call it. We try to make things, we don't try to. We unintentionally make things more difficult. At the end of the day, we're trying to solve a problem. The client is vulnerable. They need help. They need coverage. They don't know where to go. They don't know what coverage is the right. They don't know what type of insurance is the right one. They don't know how much they exactly need. And ultimately, they have no idea. You could ask any client. They have no idea what the differences are if you laid out 10 insurance companies in front of them.
Right. Let's get the one on TV or the one in the mail.
We're not talking about if they need it or not. They know they need it. They just want to get it from the right person.
Correct.
But where we come in and that credibility piece comes in, and what you're saying applies so much, is we have to be the one to earn the right through trust to help them pick the amount of coverage they need by educating them, but also what carrier they need. And that comes from exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. This is the interesting thing here, Zach. You are 100% correct. It's an issue of perspective of meeting the client's needs. But I promise you this, if you aren't doing the work before the work, so what is the work? The work is dialing, talking, having conversations, getting in front of people, or door knocking and getting in front of people. It's one or the other. That is the work. The work before the work is knowing the medications, knowing underwriting, knowing medications, knowing the script. And what I see many times, people are finding ways to be busy, but not do the work.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, man, I got to get my binders correct in alphabetical order. I've got to play with insurance toolkits to make sure you do need to have a working knowledge of this stuff. But they're finding, I got to get my office set up right. I don't like this light. It's one of those soft bulbs that will lower my energy. My feng shui, I don't know if that's the right word, is off. Like, they're finding that busyness, but they're not taking the ownership of the process. Because this is what I know, that an agent who doesn't know underwriting and they don't know how to close because they didn't practice very much, that even if they got the front side of the script worked out, all they're thinking about is underwriting and closing.
Yep.
That's it. And if they don't know the script and they're talking to their client, they're not listening to their client. All they're thinking about is the script.
Yeah.
That's it.
And when I started in this, I was very similar to you in the way I prepared and practiced. I can't tell you how many times that I had a yellow legal pad that I rewrote my script multiple times
In
over
Hebrew,
and over.
that's what I was amazed
No,
by.
I didn't do Hebrew. Thought about it though. But how many times I wrote it out, and then I would fill in. I would do it paragraph by paragraph, and then I would literally write in, what example could I add to this to help simplify, to help clarify, but not replace. I would say it, but how do I say it again simpler? And then I would say, how do I insert a little joke? Where do I want to insert a pause? And I would write them in different colored ink.
Yeah.
Here's what I would say here. Here's the example I would give. And then here was the joke I would say. And the reason for doing that is when I added intentional pauses in a different colored ink, it let them know that I'm human, I'm not a robot. If I added a joke, I'm a guy that's lighthearted and wants to have fun because they're human, we're human. We all don't want to be depressed and talk about death and dying all the time, right? Yeah. And I wanted to add the example because sometimes it's hard to understand insurance, especially when somebody is stressed out or emotional. What we know from leads is typically when this is on their mind, they either lost somebody close to them recently or they had some sort of health scare personally made them realize they're not invincible anymore. Either way, those are two life changes that are going to add stress and emotion, right?
Yeah.
Which reveals their vulnerability, which is why we're there to begin with. But if we can do that and we can connect with them and re-explain it in a very simple way, they feel heard, educated, and it creates a bond throughout. Do you know how many times I did that same thing on legal pads over and over again?
Yeah.
Do you know how many times I read that in a mirror? Do you know how many times I recorded it and played it back to watch myself? Yeah. Oh man, I tell you, one of the biggest feedback I gave myself, dude, you're going way too fast. You're going way too fast. And I feel like I'm talking like a turtle.
Yeah.
But it's not about that. It's how it's perceived, right?
Yeah, how it's received, right?
And it is it was eye-opening for me, but doing the same thing with medication scenarios, with the underwriting. And guys, it's pretty simple. You read the health questions, the application tells you. If you answer yes to anything in this question, they're not going to qualify for this. You know, I mean,
and that shouldn't be blind to you.
No, it's very, very simple.
Yeah,
it's
very
not
simple. A guess. It's not a guessing game at all. This I love that, Zach. I love it. It's kind of funny to me.
But people don't practice enough
writing in the jokes because I had to remove jokes. That's just so natural.
Your whole he whipped out his joke journal and then added his script to the joke journal.
That's right. That's exactly what happened. No, that's good, man. I and you are right, and that's the issue. You know, you're an athlete. You've played basketball at a very high level, and I've heard from, you know, people who perform that way that you don't practice in the game. You practice in practice. You execute in the game. Mm-hmm. Am I saying that right? It's
pretty much.
Yeah, it's pretty much the idea.
You sounded real athletic when you said it.
I did especially they ask if you need to learn how to shoot in the competence. That's a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Because Zach could speak to it very clearly. I'm guessing, right?
Maybe,
So the competence of something, and it's the same thing here. We're just asking you for your sake. Help us help you. This is that Jerry Maguire.
Oh, here's the biggest.
Help us help you.
Here's the biggest question you can ask yourself. Can you recite the entire presentation in a human form, not in word for word robot form that you remembered every word, in a conversation human form without looking at it? Mm-hmm. And if you say no, my question is, why not?
That's great. That is great.
Why not?
Very good. That's strong. I'm reminded of this this moment for me. We've talked about like my fear of heights and the videos that I did and stuff like that. I did do a study tour in Turkey of different sites from the Bible and stuff like that. We had this great tour guide. And he took us up this trail, and we went to the Acropolis. And dude, there was a point where the trail was washed out, and there's a mound, and you had to lay on your stomach to shimmy over to the other side of this trail. And I was like, well, I guess we're done. You know, there's this washed out road. There's no way we're going forward. And he's like, no, we're going to continue on. And I was like, what are we doing? You know, I was like, we're doing what? They prepared us for this. They prepared us for this trip. And one by one, everybody went across. And me and these other lovely older women, 2 other women, stayed behind. And it was an emotional moment. Like I felt like I had let myself down in the moment, right?
Yeah.
And they came back down, and I talked to the leader, and he said, I was like, man, I'm so sorry. I couldn't do it. And he's like, Chris, I just want to know, did you do the best you could? Oh my gosh, dude, that was like a gut punch, right? You know, like, man, that hit straight to the core because I couldn't answer yes.
But that's a perfect example of like, it's not has anything to do with him. It's what you had to tell yourself, what you convinced yourself versus the reality of how you felt about yourself.
Right. Yeah.
That's powerful, man.
Yeah. So we'll ask the same question. Are you doing the best you can?
Is your presentation or your script right now, if you had to recite it in front of a mirror on your phone,
the best
is that the best one it could ever be?
That's the question. So we'll wrap with this. 3 things. This is serious work, and it's time to start taking it seriously. 2, are you just doing busy work versus practicing the things that matter? And 3, I'll say it this way. Read it, memorize it, own it. Because if you're thinking about it while you're talking, you aren't prepped. You got to do the work. Cool?
100%.
Guys, if you got value from this, like, subscribe, share it, get it out there and help other agents be successful. And if you would like some coaching, you need some courses, you can check out lifeinsuranceacademy.org and jump on our Insta faces. We'd love for you to give us some likes out there too in Instagram and Facebook. But thank you guys. Have a great week and give us your stories in the comments about how this has helped you. We love you. We'll see you on the next Life Insurance Academy podcast.